Hello, buona giornata, buenos dias, bonne journée, god dag, guten tag. Welcome everyone to the IWMF's 27th Annual Educational Forum and our third virtual forum. I'm Peter DeNardis, a WM patient myself and chair of the IWMF Board of Trustees, and we're thrilled that you can join us today. Although we're not able to gather in person this year as we had originally planned, your 2022 Ed Forum Committee has been hard at work to design a two-day agenda with the latest information and progress in treating the disease. They have been planning and working on this since January, and I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge them for their commitment and for what I hope you will agree will be a job well done. The committee members are Maureen Beck, Donna Cutillo, Newton Guerin, David Kahn, Sarah McKinney, Shelley Postek, Julie Richardson, Sharon Rivet, Rick Savoy, Eileen Sullivan, Robin Tucker, Lisa Wise, and a little bit of help from me. This weekend, we're expecting over 1,100 participants from 33 different countries, with almost half attending the Ed Forum for the first time. So I welcome you all. Our virtual Ed Forums have allowed us to reach a much larger audience than was ever possible with the in-person meetings that we had. But it is our hope that we'll be able to meet again in person in the future. But rest assured, either way, the important thing for us will always be the health and the safety of the participants in the Ed Forum. So we'll do whatever is appropriate at that point in time. For now, I'd like to share some slides on the services that the IWMF provides and what our mission is, and give you a little bit of background if you don't know already. The IWMF, our mission, will probably focus on four key areas of membership, of support, of education, of research, and also with our providing information to the global community. By way of information, what we do provide is the IWMF website. It's your resource where you can find just about anything you need to know about the IWMF and about the disease. There's also the Torch magazine that comes out quarterly that has the latest on research and support activities around the world. And we have the Waldenstrom's Weekly, a weekly news message that comes out with guidelines to recent pronouncements for WM patients, about upcoming webinars, and other support information that's vital for us to continue to thrive as patients. And we also have virtual sharing groups, which include, of course, the Facebook. We also have a presence in an online discussion group called Connect. And so please take a look at the links that I've provided in the slides. And if you haven't joined any of those, consider doing so. Naturally, we also have support that we provide by way of support groups around the world. And we have over 70 support groups and affiliate organizations worldwide in 25 countries that provide direct local connection with people that have a similar disease and are traveling the same journey. So please take advantage of those resources and connect with your fellow WMers in your local area. I think you'll find it to be a rewarding experience and will help you get a little more comfortable with the idea of having WM and what you can do about it. We also have a lifeline, which is a resource that anyone can take advantage of. People are available by telephone, by email, to discuss any topic that is of interest to you. So please take advantage of that. We do provide also education by way of our annual education forum, which is what you're participating in now, of course. And we also have occasional webinars. So please join the Waldenstrom's Weekly so that you get those weekly emails and get updated about when the next webinar is. And you can keep up to date on that, and you can make sure that you don't miss out on it. And it's also available after the fact on the IWMF website if you do happen to miss a date of a webinar that when it goes live. We also have publications that cover a variety of topics, and we have books, we have fact sheets, and the newest Guide to Understanding Your Bone Marrow booklet is available, and that's going to be one of our first presenters for the Ed Forum. We'll be talking about the bone marrow, and all of our publications are now available in multiple languages and can be downloaded for free at iwmf.com. As for research, while we focus on providing information, education, and support, we also remain fully committed to doing a search for a cure and better treatments for WM. In fact, in recent years, we have witnessed substantial progress in basic biomedical research and subsequent treatments that are available specifically for WM. And this has been made possible in part by funding from the IWMF. Since 1999, we've funded over $21 million in global WM research, and it's all been made possible by gifts from the donor community, from people and friends and family that have WM, and also from some foundations and corporate gifts. So now the IWMF currently offers research in a variety of areas, and we have three categories: the IWMF LLS Strategic Research Roadmap, we have the Robert Kyle Career Development Awards, and the IWMF Research Seed Money Grants. The idea is to not only give research awards to well-established researchers who are leading the charge, let's say, in finding better ways to treat WM, but also the up-and-coming researchers, the folks that many of us will be looking for in the years ahead for the next developments. So when the current crop of researchers decide it's time to retire, and hopefully that won't be for quite some time, these younger researchers will be able to step in and take over and continue to carry the torch for finding better treatments for WM. So, in fact, you know, in 2003, when I was first diagnosed, there were no treatments approved specifically for WM, and many of the treatments we had were fairly toxic, and they were just kind of borrowed from treatments that are used from related diseases and were found to be useful for WM. You jump ahead 20 years, and now we have BTK inhibitors approved specifically for use in WM patients, along with several other forms of treatment that are currently in clinical trials. So the future looks bright for us, and with that continued effort by the IWMF to spur research, and with the continued support of the WM community globally, we help to make this possible. So the message to all of you is the fact that you're here shows that you're trying to stay informed, so keep up the good work. The more you know about the disease, the better you can find ways to communicate with your medical providers and have a good discussion about what your options are, and you get a better feel for what you should expect and how you're feeling and how your disease is progressing or not progressing, hopefully. Also, I encourage you all to help each other, participate in online discussion forums, participate in support groups, and also if you have a skill that you think would be helpful to the IWMF, please volunteer. We have a link in the notes for you how to do that. Myself included, many years ago, I was so appreciative of the support that I got from fellow WMers and the advice that I got that I decided to pay it forward and apply my skills to help fellow WMers down the road. So hopefully you can do the same. And please, anything that you think might be helpful, volunteer. We'll find a way to use you. Also donate or encourage friends and family and relatives to donate because we really can't provide all the amazing services we provide without that additional funding. And that's the important aspect of what we do. And that's what keeps us going. And it keeps us our eyes on the target, let's say, of finding a cure for WM. And lastly, you may notice I have a T-shirt on, but it's the, stand up a little bit. It's from a couple years ago, the Walk for Waldenstroms. So if you haven't already, join us in the annual Walk for Waldenstroms on Sunday, September 18th. You don't necessarily have to walk, just do something you really enjoy. We'll be all sharing what we're doing virtually and have a sense of community about it. Ideally, if you can get people to donate on your behalf, that would be fantastic. But if not, at least take advantage of the opportunity to virtually provide support to each other, that we're all doing something together on the same day. It'll be a special moment. It's the first year we're trying something like this in a more organized fashion. And we're going to try to have this be around the same time every year so that you can kind of gear up for it and get ready for it when that comes around again. So this year's Ed Forum, the theme is Living, Learning, and Thriving with WM. And I promise there's something for everyone, whether you're a veteran patient or a newly diagnosed person or coming to the Ed Forum for the first time. We're proud to introduce all our esteemed faculty members that are part of the Ed Forum this year. And they're taking time basically out of their day to talk to all of us and to present their guidance and their advice and their latest findings on what works and what works well for WM patients. So please, sit back, relax, enjoy the presentations. And also we have a short video that will help you become acquainted with some of those experts. Hopefully you'll find it enlightening. I know I really enjoyed hearing a lot about what these researchers have been doing, and also a little bit of personal information that you never quite get, even in a live Ed Forum. So I hope you will enjoy it, and stick around afterwards for the next presentation after the video.
Be a school teacher.
Well, I've always been fascinated by science, so I think I would be a scientist.
And I think I would be an historian.
And I probably will be cooking somewhere. I do enjoy the cooking process.
A little about me personally, I have 3 kids and a dog, and so my house is a zoo all the time, which is really fun.
That I would really recommend that you also in your professional life, that you do things you really like to do in life and in your profession.
20th century is Tom Wolfe. I think his best book was Bonfire of the Vanities.
Do I have any collections? And I have a weird collection which I collected from when I was a kid, and those are Asterix and Obelix comics.
The other thing is, do I have any collections? The answer is yes, I do. I have a couple of note. One is that I have a very extensive baseball book library that's really quite impressive, and I've read all the books that are in there and continue to grow that. And then I have a bobblehead collection too, and I've had these bobbleheads given to me by patients over the years. They know I collect them. I have a few interesting bobbleheads as well from friends, and there's even a bobblehead of myself that a patient had made for me. So those are a couple of the collections that I have and truly enjoy.
That's patients and people. And the reason I say that is my focus in my career has been on identifying new targets, developing therapies, and then testing them in clinical trials. And nothing is more gratifying than to see patients for whom their options have become fewer, and now we have something new and seeing those new therapies making a difference for people.
I really see a lot of value in support groups, so I'm often encouraging my patients to join different support groups, and it's one of my favorite things that I do in my job is to bring patients together to talk about things that are important to them.
To help patients suffering from this lymphoma subtype, because we know that Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia can cause a lot of different symptoms, and many of them are really able to compromise quality of life. So this was my ambition and my motivation.
My career on Waldenstrom's, and I will have to admit that it's been a more recent change for me. A lot of my practice is focused on multiple myeloma, but I've, through the course of my years at the Fred Hutch Cancer Center, have had the opportunity to meet a lot of patients with Waldenstrom's and be mentored by a mentor who focused on Waldenstrom. And so that's what compelled me to focus my career that way.
This misconception people have about your position. I think there are a couple of two big misconceptions. Number one is that I don't sleep. And the number two is that I know everything. I do sleep and I don't know everything.
I think what compelled me the most was the complexity of your disease. It's not a straightforward disease at all. It is a very complex disease with many different angles to look at it and also many uncertainties at the moment. We don't know all of it, we will never know all of it, but I think from every patient I still learn because the disease can be so diverse, and that's something I like.
In terms of just understanding a work lesson that I've come away with over the years, and it has to do with patient communication. For patients to have trust in your recommendations and willing to comply with some of the suggestions, some of which can have significant risks, it's really important that you establish adequate communication with your patient. And by that, I mean getting away from the jargon and the technical lingo that physicians so often fall into.
Very early in my career, I was actually exposed to the care of a patient with Waldenstrom's who had received the first biologic therapy, that being rituximab. And I was actually quite excited about the use of a biologic agent instead of chemotherapy to treat Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia. And this actually embarked me on studying rituximab in Waldenstrom's, not only studying it both as a clinical agent, but understanding from a basic science point of view how rituximab work. And I think much of that work not only applies to Waldenstrom's, but also to other diseases that use rituximab.
Professional perspective, what influenced me to become a WM physician? Well, I've always been, throughout my whole medical life, interested in blood cancer and hematology. And believe it or not, I went to a hematology conference in the early 2000s. It was in Whistler, BC. And I was on a bus between Vancouver and Whistler and sat behind this other physician who was, right in front of me. We were chatting about what we did. And I explained, I see these patients. He goes, well, I'm interested in Waldenstrom's. I said, well, I have some of these patients. I'd love to become more involved with Waldenstrom's and so forth. And that physician who was sitting in front of me was named Dr. Stephen Treon. And Dr. Treon got me involved from that moment on in what initially was called the WM Clinical Trials Group. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to be involved in WM.
For me, it's very important that all patients know this and that they should look in an optimistic way into the future.
And for me is that your M protein, every patient should know their M protein, but you should also know that your M protein is just a number.
Is that these are very exciting times. We know more about Waldenstrom's than any other point in history. We understand now much of its genomics, although there's much more to be revealed. But I can tell you this is actually steering us in a direction that we couldn't have even imagined even 10 years ago. One, to developing new therapies that are truly targeted and genomically driven. And the other, I think, which is just as important, is individualizing treatment for patients and not really presuming that all Waldenstrom patients actually are the same. They're not. We know that already. But if we have a genomic footprint for each patient to guide us into using many of the new drugs and drugs to be developed in the future, I think this is the excitement that I want to be able to share at this year's forum.
one thing that I would want all patients with Waldenstrom's to know is that it's a long game. You probably know this already, but if you have a precursor condition, chances are that you would be followed by your oncologist for a long time, maybe even before ever needing treatment. And even once you start treatment, that it's something that we're following and treating for a long time, years maybe.
You should be hopeful. Our treatments are so good and the disease responds so well to our treatments that our hope is for excellent quality of life and long survival. So go WMers.
It's just how important it is to make sure that you don't feel isolated during this process. So whether it's reaching out to a therapist, using social media, connecting with friends and family, really making sure that they reach out and get the support that they need.
That Waldenstrom's is changing fast, and it's changing for the better for everybody. We now have many treatment options. Many of those treatment options are far better tolerated than in the past, but more interesting and more exciting is those new options are making a huge difference in patients' longevity, and many patients now are having a much better outcome with Waldenstrom's overall.
I think it's important to know that this is a journey. It is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So I think a few things, how you arm yourself to something like this. You need to have mental strength, you need to have physical strength, you need to have a network of people around you. So sharing with people that loves you, being in the visits with the people that care about you, I think is very important. Educating yourself, arm yourself with all the knowledge that you can so you can be your best own advocate. I think that's actually a very important message that I can provide as well. So always thinking in the long term.
Is not focus on the level of the IgM. The IgM level, which we use as a surrogate of disease activity, is not really used in decision making. There's no threshold above which we're going to recommend treatment. We do follow trends over time, but for example, a certain level of IgM does not determine whether we need to do something about it. Those decisions are made primarily on patient symptoms, and so you should be focusing on how you're feeling, the quality of your life, and your activities of daily living rather than what my IgM level is.